Whole Lot of Wolves summer specials are brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Showcasing 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle, they have the perfect pairings for all of your summer beach days and barbecues. Head to esfuerzowines.com now and use the promo code Vitor, that's Vitor, to get a 30% discount on your order. And don't miss their one-pack wines, which proudly display their support of Wolverhampton Wanderers. That's esfuerzowines.com, promo code Vitor.
Welcome to the first summer special of Whole Lot of Wolves, proudly brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. I'm your host, Paul LePage, and I have Alex Patakis with me.
Hey.
And the show is indeed a special because of our guest. In his near decade at Wolves, he played over 300 times, became known for having a knack of popping up in the right place at the right time with some important goals. Experienced the highs of a championship winning promotion and stay in the Premier League under Mick McCarthy, but also some of the lowest of lows with that double dip relegation to League One. But as an experienced figure, he was crucial in helping the club to bounce back with the League One title in 2014. Internationally, capped 43 times for Wales and was a member of that unforgettable squad that captured the hearts of the nation by reaching the semi-finals of the Euros in 2016. Now a familiar voice, especially for those of us overseas who watch the games on the international broadcast, as he's a popular co-commentator. It is our pleasure to welcome Dave Edwards.
Thanks for having me. It's quite the intro. Sounds like I've done a lot of stuff. It doesn't feel like that, but no, thank you very much.
So, firstly, Dave, importantly, can you confirm or deny that Marshall Manetzi is the Zimbabwean reincarnation of Dave Edwards?
Well, I'm definitely leading his fan club. I would say that it's. I find it quite refreshing that I'm able to watch a player like Marshall Manetzi, just because, yeah, he plays very, very similar to how I played, and I can really understand, I suppose, from a tactical and analytical point of view, a lot of the stuff he does. And it will go very unnoticed at times. He does a lot of running off the ball. He does a lot of unselfish runs. But one thing he definitely does do is help his teammates around him, makes them look better. And that's something I always felt like I try to do. So, yeah, I love him. I think he's been a really welcome addition to the squad. And he gives us a lot of balance as well, because we've got a lot of very good technical players. And I do think we need that other option of someone running on beyond, running in behind. And it definitely helps the likes of Jorgen Strand Larsen and Matheus Cunha in particular. So, yeah, I'm all for Marshall Manetzi. So if I'm being likened to him, I think that's a big compliment to myself.
So you mentioned a lot of his qualities. Do you think individually that his profile is going to be pretty crucial to that team next season?
Absolutely. Like I said, it's, as a fan, you naturally want all of the technical mavericks on the pitch, but I can pretty much guarantee that if you played the, say, 10 most technical outfield players, as a team, it just wouldn't work. So you need different types of players. And I find that in particular for the Premier League, his physicality, his dynamism, intelligence as well. I think he's a very intelligent footballer. I think that'll play a massive part into Wolves being successful. And I fully expect him to be a starter, especially in the system which Vitor Pereira does play. Like I said, I think he brings out the best in other people around him as well. So, yeah, I think he's made for the Premier League. And whilst there will be games, undoubtedly, where he looks like he's not offering a great deal, the game might pass him by. But Vitor Pereira will always know that he's going to get an 8 or 9 out of 10 off the ball for him. And you need that reliable type of figure in an 11 as well. So, yeah, fully expecting to be a huge player for us next year.
So as an American watching the broadcast, we always enjoy when there's a little bit of a Wolves flair and we get a game that you're on it. Curious to know, though, when you were getting ready to hang up the boots, was it always part of the plan to get into commentary and media?
I think probably as I was nearing retirement, I was very sort of ready for retirement in the fact that I'd done a lot of work in the build up to of different things I wanted to do. I've got a few different business interests, which I do. And at one point, as much as I love football and do like the idea of being a coach, I just felt for that stage of my life that it wasn't really going to be the right fit for me, because as a footballer, you're very, very selfish in the things you do. You're completely self-absorbed in making sure you're in the best place possible, mentally, physically, everything, just for a training session, let alone a game. And that can really take its demands on the family environment, I think. And then obviously with the emotions involved in football, where if you win, you're kind of high as a kite, and if you lose, you're really low. I was quite keen just to come away from that for a little bit. And then if I really miss football, the day-to-day stuff, then coaching would still be an option. But I kind of fell into the media at the back end of my career, got presented a few opportunities and wanted to try it out. And then I realized quite quickly that it was a really nice way for me to stay in football. And I enjoyed it. I've worked really hard at it as well. I think that's important. I don't think you might be able to fluke getting onto some commentaries or some shows as a pundit once or twice, but it's so competitive that you'll quickly get found out. So it's a profession which you really need to work at. And I feel quite lucky now that I've sort of done as many, or had as many appearances as I have sort of behind the microphone. I think I've done nearly 70 games this season, which is amazing. So I really enjoy doing it. I feel like I've moved into the stage now where I'm a broadcaster who used to play football rather than a football player who does broadcasting. I think there's a big difference to that. And I feel like I've just moved to the other side of that balance now, which is quite nice. But it's even nicer when I get asked to do Wolves games, because firstly, it means half the prep, because I kind of know everything about Wolves anyway. I'm so used to watching them, even if I'm not working a weekend and me and my son can go to a Wolves game, we always do. If I can't get to a game, I'll always watch the full game back. So from a preparation point of view, it's a godsend when I do Wolves games.
It's always good listening to co-commentators when they're not so far removed from the game, like yourself, Dave, to give that perspective of what's going on. And one area we'd like to hear what you say about is culture in the dressing room, how important it is. And this is a two-part question, really, because how significant do you think that culture shift was behind the scenes when Vitor Pereira came in? Certainly with some of the stuff maybe around Craig Dawson, Mario Lemina, some of the situations they had to tackle.
Yeah, it was obviously something which needed to happen. I feel quite fortunate that within my playing career, I really saw sort of the old guard and the new guard in terms of when I was first coming through. Still massively the drink culture in football, especially my time coming through at Shrewsbury Town, and the professionalism wasn't there. And then I kind of, through my mid-20s, early 30s, it started to change massively. The responsibility players would take on looking after themselves and the in-depth analysis, all these things, you just got more and more and more. So I feel like I've seen it all. And that allows me to, I think, be able to notice when things aren't quite right. And I feel like you could sense that at the end of the Gary O'Neill reign. Gary O'Neill, someone who I really liked. I think that the first year he did a terrific job. But as it was coming towards the end, you could tell that the dynamic wasn't quite right with the players. It was a very, very emotional dressing room. And I think he touched on that quite a few times. But it seemed like it was a little bit having a negative effect on things. And it really needed someone like Vitor Pereira. I liken it to Nuno. I liken it to Mick McCarthy. I liken it to Chris Coleman, even all the way back to some of my Shrewsbury managers, Gary Peters. I think it's really important that a manager has that authority right from the start and makes big calls, big decisions, knowing it's for the better of the team, not just trying to keep people happy. And obviously, Mario Lemina, club captain, to make a call on him so quickly, I thought put a real line in the sand to kind of say, this is my team. This is the way I'm going to go about it. And if you're on board, great. But if you're not, then 1,000,000% you are not going to affect what everyone else is thinking as well. So you're either going to leave or you'll be kind of cut adrift. And he's done the same with Craig Dawson. I think both of them are very good people, but just not the right fit for what Vitor's trying to do. So I think making those big decisions was important rather than just trying to muddle through to the end of the season. And you can see now that it's a completely different team in terms of the way they play for each other, the togetherness on the pitch, the emotion that I keep talking about as well. It's controlled. They have a lot of control in games anyway, I feel, under Vitor Pereira. So some really, really good signs moving forward. But it all does, I think, transcend from those first couple of days, weeks under Vitor Pereira where he had to make those big decisions. I think that it had a really galvanizing effect on the rest of the group.
Do you think he really leaned into Matheus Cunha, knowing that he's a character, he's a maverick, but he's that type of player that's going to be crucial to the team staying up in some form or fashion? Do you think that was an individual that he looked at and made it work with him? Or do you think he just naturally felt that Cunha was still a good fit regardless of personality?
I think it was a bit of both with Matheus Cunha, to be honest. He had single-handedly carried our season, I think, up until Vitor Pereira came in. He was that good. We would have been really cut adrift without him. He scored some really important goals, and he looked like our only real attacking threat. So I think when Vitor Pereira comes in and he sees it's an emotional group, he sees that Matheus Cunha is a part of that, it was a bit of a balancing act, saying we do need this player because from an attacking point of view, he could, because obviously at the point he took over, we were in real relegation trouble. We were second to bottom. Things were looking really daunting to stay in the Premier League. And I don't think at that point you can risk taking your best player out. Whereas with someone like Mario Lemina, when you've got João Gomez and Andre already in that position, two players he knows really well, he would have been able to feel that he could make a decision on that. Whereas Matheus Cunha, I think he's had to work with him a little bit. And I think he's been rewarded. There was obviously still the little blip with the Bournemouth things where he did get banned. But what Vitor Pereira did really well, I believe, is he come out in the press on quite a few occasions and said that it wasn't acceptable. Some of the things he was doing, he commented on his body language a few times. He left a lot of subliminal messages in press conferences where he felt like he was talking about Matheus Cunha, but without naming him. And then I'm adamant that behind the scenes, then he would have worked really hard with Matheus Cunha, trying to make him understand how important he is for the team. And how it will have a positive effect on his own career, like it has done, in terms of he's obviously wanted to progress and move on to another club. But for that to happen, then he needs to produce his best stuff at Wolves, which he undoubtedly has this season. But yeah, I think he's definitely one where Vitor Pereira would have looked at and thought he's too good a player for me to really ostracize. So let's try and work with him and get the best out of him. And he absolutely has done that.
You got to spend some time with Vitor recently for the Wolves Unpacked podcast, which anyone listening to this, I implore you, if you haven't heard it, you absolutely need to. You guys spoke a lot about tactics in depth. It was a great window into that. But I'm also curious, just getting to know him a little bit as a person, Dave. A lot of the things you're saying, I feel like at moments for previous managers since Nuno, we might be able to say there was a culture shift in that. But what is it about Vitor specifically that you think will make him different than everyone we've seen since Nuno? Kind of looking for a little optimism here that this will last.
Well, I was full of optimism after the podcast we recorded with him. I genuinely thought I would just love to play for you. Mainly because of what you were talking about Marshall Monetzi and how much you appreciate him. I thought then I would stand a chance of being in your team if I was maybe 10 years younger. But I suppose the biggest positives were twofold, really. One is how much he just loves football. Like the way he talks about football, I've never heard anyone do it with such passion. And you can tell it's all he ever thinks about. Every little question we asked him, he would really see his mind ticking and working and trying to give us the answer, obviously in his second or third language, what it might be to the best of his ability. So I think from that side, just a real passion for his job. understanding how to get the best out of his team, always looking to improve. That's huge. But then also, I feel like he owes Wolves something. I feel like that's what he's given off, that he's been desperate to be a Premier League manager for so long, that Wolves have given this opportunity. So he's thinking, I have to repay this football club. And I think you see that with his relationship with the fans. He's fully cemented himself in the community. The way he talks about the city, how it's a one club city, and that makes it easier to connect everyone. How he wants his players on the pitch to be a representation of Wolverhampton. He understands it. And I think for a foreign manager to do that so quickly, that's going to give him the upper hand, definitely. And then undoubtedly things go wrong. He's had a couple of losing streaks in his reign, but Wolves fans are stuck with it massively because they can see the bigger picture. But then it is his actual managerial knowledge, the way he sets up his team, the way he wants to play in possession, out of possession. I honestly think he's an elite manager. And I feel very lucky that we've got him at Wolves. Like I keep saying, try not to say it with too much optimism, because I don't want to be burnt next season if things don't go right. But it's honest, at this moment in time, I can't see a negative of Vitor Pereira and what he's going to do, because I keep saying, obviously you're going to lose games at some point because it's the Premier League, it's the best league in the world, but I can't see anyone else out there at this moment who is better suited to take this Wolves team forward. And then hopefully he gets the signings he wants in the summer. I'm not quite sure exactly who we're going to lose. There's going to be players, there's no doubt about that. But if he can go into next season with a squad he's happy with, then I just can't see how it can't be a successful, progressive season for Wolves.
One of the things he said about his own style too, I thought was interesting, was the simplicity of it. And it's not a really complicated game that he wants to play. Gary O'Neill, I think, revealed himself many times as a great tactical mind, but as a player, is that kind of a relief? The fact that it's not very complicated what we're looking to do.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I was always a player which liked as much information as possible. I loved the analytical side of football. I would watch so many games back, watch my opposition, all those sorts of things. But I don't think that was the norm. I think a lot of players want to play with less information. They want to play more instinctive, which is when footballers are at their absolute best. And I feel that maybe at times in previous regimes that you can tell there's a lot of information going into the players, and are they able to fully digest all of that? And especially when you put into sort of different languages, different cultures, all those sorts of things. And there's been an obvious shift from Vitor Pereira that less is more. Very simple in the way he wants to set up his team. And then it's just almost like week on week, he's just adding another layer. And I feel like the identity of the team's getting stronger and stronger each week. But you're right in the simplicity in which he wants to play. And he explains it really well. So I imagine if he can explain it to us and to the press and to the fans, then with all the time he gets to the players, then that will be easy for them to digest. It's about trying to draw people onto you, and then trying to find the space and attack quickly when those moments come. And it's out of possession. Every opportunity can be pressed forward. If not, and we can't get around the ball, we get back into our shape. That's kind of safety blanket which Nuno used to play under. Loads of similarities with Nuno, but I actually think their tactics are very, very different. But yeah, I definitely think, like you said, stripping things back to basics. When I was at the King Power for his very first game, just defending corners in the warm-up, it was just something which we were having a real horrible time with, and no one's mentioned it in the last 6 to 8 weeks how bad we are at defending set pieces. And I think that's a massive positive we've got to take from it. But yeah, simple stuff.
So into the summer, Dave, at the time of recording, a lot of speculation around Mateus Cunha's departure. Likely Nelson Semedo too, already this week confirmed Pablo Sarabia is moving on. It's going to be a summer of transition, but the positive is that we've got a very good central spine of the team that remains. But will those players be feeling any type of anxiousness around a transitional period? Or is there just a feeling that it's par for the course as a professional footballer?
I think there'll be different views. I feel that the better players, if you like, the ones who are who've got the higher ceiling to get to, they'll want to see better players around them obviously because it helps the team, helps them. But there might be players who are sort of squad players and things like that. They won't be as bothered because there's more opportunity for them to play. But like you said, the spine of the team, I think in particular, I think somebody asked me about goalkeepers the other day. If it's an area that Wolves should try to improve, I don't feel like there's a need to do that. I think Jose Sá, since Vitor Pereira has come back in, or he's come back into the team under Vitor Pereira, I think he's been really solid. And are you going to be able to do much better than Jose Sá? I don't necessarily think so. So I'd be very happy to keep Jose Sá as number one for another few seasons. I think he's been good in the main. And then you've got Agbadou as your central member of the back three, and then you've got Totti and Doc and Mascara. You've got real strong foundations there, and then the heart of our midfield, which is just up there with any Premier League team, in João Gomez and Andre, and then Jorgen Strand Larsen up front. So the middle of the team is very strong. It's just about what you do around that. I feel that Nelson Semedo will be a huge loss if he does move on, which it looks like from reports that he will do. Firstly, as a player, I think he's one of the best fullbacks in the league. And then secondly, the role he's come into this season with having the captaincy thrust upon him in sort of January time, and the response that the team has had around that, and from people I speak to inside the football club saying what a calming influence he is on the group and how everyone has the utmost respect for him. So I feel like he's going to be a really difficult player to replace, and someone I feel that they'll have to try and replace with experience as well. I don't feel that we necessarily at this moment in time have the right development players to go and step in and play week in, week out in the Premier League. You've got Pedro Lima, who he's going to need a few more years. You've got Rodrigo Gomez, who's going to be a fantastic player. But I feel like if he goes and plays 20 Premier League games next year, that'll be a huge bonus for him. So I feel like we need to really replace with experience. And then with Matheus Cunha, we've known he's going to be leaving for quite a while. So I think everyone's got their head around that one. But again, he's someone that we're going to have to really invest wisely in. It's not a position that we can, because he's been so creative for us and so influential, we are going to have to go and, I imagine, try and spend money in that region, probably is the most important one to get a real creator. Because if you're going to play Menezes or Bellegarde in that other number 10 role, I feel that the one that Cunha's vacated has to be a technical player who can receive balls between the line, who can find teammates with clever passes, or potentially have some real lightning quick pace. It's got to be one of those two things. But again, it's going to have to be, I feel, a more experienced player. So it's going to be an interesting summer. I feel it's going to be, for good reasons, one of Wolves' most important summers in a long time. They've got this momentum now going into it with Vitor Pereira, and you really want to continue that. You don't want to go into the first game of the season, you've lost 3 or 4 really key players and you're not sure about the replacements. So it'll be interesting.
For the first time in a while, it feels like we're not talking about the need for a true number 9 going into a summer for Wolves. But believe it or not, there are still a faction of Wolves fans who question whether or not Jorgen Strand Larsen can really fill the boots of Raul. What would you say to those people who still doubt his overall game?
You've got to give him more time and understand what he does do to the team. Again, a bit like Menezes, he's a very unselfish player, but he has got good numbers behind him. I feel like we had 6 months where we weren't playing to his strengths at all. That we're putting no real balls into the box. You actually look at his shots on target ratio and all these things. It's very, very high. The one area he does really need to improve, and he said this before, his hold up play. He needs to use his body better, needs to be a bit stronger. But I feel that is getting better. And again, with Menezes, I think it helps Jorgen because he's running on because Menezes running on beyond, and it's taking defenders with him, and that just gives Jorgen a few more moments on the ball, so he's not constantly getting pressured by centre backs when it's going into him. But I think he's had a fantastic first season. His first season in the Premier League, coming to a new country, and I'm really, really happy that he's gone on to beat Raul's record of being the sort of the most debut goals in a Premier League season. To get 14, I think he finished with, didn't he? And he's had a few injuries in there as well. he's been brilliant. He's only going to get better next season. I do think we need to recruit to bring in another striker, but maybe not the same mould as what Jorgen is, because I'd fully expect him to be our starting number 9. But can you bring somebody in who's potentially pacey, can play as a 9 or can play as one of those 10s? Anywhere, someone who can play across those front 3 positions and be a bit more of a utility player across there. I think that's the area we need to look at, but we shouldn't be looking to bring in another number 9 to replace Jorgen Strand Larsen, because as a football fan, you can naturally be negative and look for the things you haven't got. But if you look at what we have got in Jorgen Strand Larsen, there's a lot of good things there.
You watch a lot of football, Dave, obviously. So what do you think the threat of the 3 promoted teams from the Championship will be in the Premier League next season?
You always think that one will break out the pack and have a good go. We haven't seen it in the last 2 years. I thought Ipswich's recruitment was brilliant. And they haven't quite managed to get going. Without my Wolves hat on at the moment, with just a generic football hat on, I really hope one of them can stay up, because it's becoming a bit of a sad thing for the football pyramid. I believe that if the gap is too big now between the Championship and the Premier League, then it takes away all the good things about our football pyramid. So I hope it is a little bit closer next year and somebody can break out of that pack. You look at the 3 teams that are promoted, they could all potentially do it. I was worrying for Sunderland a little bit, but they've got a young team, and if they had the right experience, and you never know. Obviously, Burnley are doing it a completely different way to what they did last time, being defensively strong. That may really help them, but are they going to have enough goals? And then Leeds, you just never know with Leeds, sort of how they're going to do. So I wouldn't hang my hat on any of them in particular being the ones to stay up, but I do hope for football that that one of them does hopefully do it this year. But I hope that Wolves are in the top half, so it doesn't affect them one bit. That would be nice anyway. But like I said, there's so many things going into it. I think the PSR stuff is making it very difficult for a lot of clubs and for promoted teams to come up and not be able to spend their money properly and then be worried about what's going to happen the following season. It's tough for them at the moment.
All right, we're going to end with a super fast quick fire round, throwing these questions straight at you, Dave. So firstly, the best player you played with during your time at Wolves?
I'll say Helder Costa, because I had a good full season under Helder and he helped me. I think he set up 8 of my goals in a 10-goal season. They're all tap-ins. So I'll say Helder. I saw the very start of Ruben and Jota, who were incredible, but I didn't really play enough football with them. So Helder Costa.
Hardest opposition player you came up against during your career?
3 standouts: Paul Scholes, Michael Essien, and Moussa Dembele from Spurs.
Favourite goal of yours, either for club or country?
2 that stand out. My goal against Leeds on Easter Monday to win the game 4-3, that header. And then another goal, which was full of emotion at the time, was I scored a goal to go 4-3 up again at the side in front of the South Bank against Fulham. But we ended up drawing 4-4. They scored a really late one as well. But for like a rush of emotion, those 2 goals were, my standouts.
Who's the one player on the current Wolves team that you'd have absolutely loved to play alongside?
I think Andre, because he would just give me so much license to go forward, just always there behind you. So Andre or Mateus Cunha, because I think he would find me with so many passes. I'd make a lot of runs as a footballer, and you only get picked out maybe 1 in 10. But I feel like he'd have the ability to do that a little bit more.
And finally, this may be a little tricky, but the next Wolves captain will be who?
At this argument all day, no, I don't think there's any massive standouts. I'll go for a club captain of Matt Doherty.
Like it very much. Dave, thank you for coming on to Whole Lot of Wolves. Your insight's been phenomenal listening to you, so I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I'd love to come on again. So give me a shout next season when we're pushing for those European places.
We'll hold you to that. Thank you.